Yeah, go ahead.
We can talk about Zodiac 2 more later, but we have a thing we have to talk about. Andrew, start the timer.
Oh crap! Thank you for reminding me.
I think once we have to skip one again, I think that's going to be our next rule. Is That's going to be like the catchphrase? Andrew, start that timer.
That's
Yeah, which is it's a catchphrase, but it's also just a useful.
exactly.
So
we
a
can
lot of
we can put it on. We can put it on. Okay. Well, all right. So this is actually the introduction. So we've got a special guest today. Doo-doo-doo.
hey, you finally got him.
Finally,
Look at
and the reason I just jumped is because she almost pushed my coffee off the table.
that.
So
Yeah, being a diva on set. That's what
that's
cats
right.
do.
So is Pandora there? Can they say hello?
She's out. I accidentally locked her in a room for a while.
Oh, okay.
Not
All right.
like terribly so, but we have to separate the cats when they eat. We have
Yeah.
the gray one and the black one, and the gray one will eat the black one's food. So they
Uh-huh.
woke me up as they usually do at 7 a.m. to eat because cats, man. And I fed them, and then Pandora was like, "I really want to eat
Mhm.
fantasy food like real bad," and I was like, "Can't, please don't do that. Please don't do that." So I just put her in actually this room, and then I accidentally went back to sleep. So she was in this room for like hours, and like you hear the little scratching, and then you open the door, and like it's that cat staring at you, like you're an idiot.
Right, exactly.
I'm like, you're safe. You had your box. You're fine. You were in here for 2 hours. She's like, I'm mad. And I'm like, that's fine. You're fair.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, uh, it was lovely to see your cat, and also
Also.
as of this recording,
Mhm.
we had our first live performance.
Yeah, and it was I felt pretty good about it. It was I think I think I said this yesterday, but the main goal I think for just having this first performance was just to you know show ourselves that we could actually do it live.
Yeah,
Because with the context, the whole creation of it. I mean, when we started, and we've said this before on the podcast, but when we started, we had no idea like really what was going to happen with it. It was really just an idea. Um, and then it turned into the 30-minute video, and then from that we're like, well, is it possible to do it live? And then this opportunity came up, which, by the way, it was a live performance, but more importantly it was for your gallery, which was amazing, by the way.
thank you very much. I'm sad to see it go. I'm kind of glad to get it done, but it was nice. It's nice. It was nice to have a space to have my art up. I got other spaces. I got other galleries, but it's always good to have a place to put your art up. And
Yeah.
even when people weren't there, I was just like, yeah, it's over there. Felt good. So it's a
Yeah.
mixed feeling. I'm glad I did it. I'm glad to put it in the books,
Yeah.
but I'm both ready for it to be over, but it could be up for 2 more years, and I'd be pleased.
Sure, exactly. Yeah. Well,
Um,
I'm sure there'll be more opportunities, for things like that.
yeah, and like some of this, I have shows lined up, and like some
Mhm.
of the I have like places that I've been selling art relatively regular from some spots, and just instead of printing new stuff, I'm like, when this is done, we'll move it over there, and it will be
Yeah.
great, which is smart and good, except for the fact that I'm just sort of waiting to move it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was a very nice and interesting experience. I hope to do another showing of it. I did an intro of it, and I think I screwed up because I should have said this is 30 minutes. You should sit. You know what I mean? Like this is a sit down experience. This is something you sit down and vibe with. If you're standing, it's going to be a lot harder on you because it's not fast moving.
Right. Well, and I also I when I was actually performing, I was intentionally kind of not looking at the audience, which, again, like I've compared it to some of my other performances where I do want to engage with the audience, and like I felt like for this one, I wanted the music and the art to really be the engaging part, like not me in particular. So I wasn't really looking at the audience, and I also had my headphones on, so I was able to kind of tune out everything that was going on, so, just to put that in context, the reason I had my headphones on is because I had to listen to like a click while I was playing along with the track, so everything would line up with the art. Um, but uh, but anyway, so I just mentioned all that because I was kind of able to tune out what was going on around me pretty easily. And then after the performance ended and I looked up, then I noticed that actually I was pleased to see that, there were quite a few people kind of, still in the seats, and then there were quite a few people actually standing in the back as well. And it was kind of nice to see that. And, and I'm sure there were different levels of enjoyment. People talked to me afterwards. I'm sure people talked to you as well and said they enjoyed it. And like there were some people who had some really interesting insights into it. And I'm sure there were also other people who just, it wasn't their thing. And that's okay too. I mean, like I think you go into an experimental thing knowing that.
Mhm. Yeah, there were some people who I'll tell you later. It's funny. They were like, I didn't, and they were like, it bothered them, and that for me, I was like, oh, that feels almost as good.
Yeah.
Like, because one of the things, and I think I will be trying to introduce it if we do it again live, and I'm going to do a better job introducing.
Mhm.
But I wish I could. It was also interesting to a is interesting for me because this is the first time we did it so it's the first time I've really hung out in Capricorn since we
Mhm.
finished part 2, and
Right.
I love Capricorn, don't get me wrong, but I've been promoting it like crazy, but I haven't watched it again with any real other than, like, I watched the final act a handful of times and a couple, like, in between, but I haven't watched a lot. There was stuff I forgot was in there. There's
Mhm.
stuff that, like, is in Capricorn that would never, ever go into the new one.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a little bit I don't wanna, like I keep coming back to, like, primitives. It's more basic and raw
Mhm.
than the second one, and it's interesting that only 30 images later, it's a very different vibe than the first one.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. And I noticed that with the music as well because when I um was comparing well, it was actually so that's interesting kind of on a couple different levels because like, comparing it just as far as the writing, but then also going back and like learning the music
Mhm,
to perform it for a live performance. It's the music on a technical level isn't difficult at all. I mean, like it's but what is challenging is that there's a lot of stuff to think about,
mhm.
and that was kind of new for me, like from a performance perspective, but as far as the writing itself, like it's also it was like very interesting comparing like the way that I wrote for Capricorn, and then the way that I've been writing recently for the part 2,
Mhm.
and it's weird to see, like because I think and we were kinda talking about this yesterday, but when we're working on the project, we're working on it in so, minute and individual, parts, and
Mhm.
so to really kinda zoom out and look at it as a whole, is a really interesting experience, and I almost sort of felt more uh, like an audience member or more like a performer in the sense of, like, I'm learning somebody else's music in that sense, you
Interesting.
know? So
Well, and it's also cool because it's the and I love the it's one of the problems isn't deficits of our performance is this isn't the way I envisioned Capricorn being seen ever.
mhm.
It was daylight and, because I always, like it wa it was interesting to pull out stuff that, like, was in it, but
Mhm.
I put it more subconsciously because that now it's live, and the stuff that I don't like about it, it's done where you can sort of come and go, but it feels kinda awkward, it's during the daytime, and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, well, like, it's a hit," like, I was like, "Oh, yeah, like, it's hypnagogic by its existence," which
Right.
is hypnagogic is that place between awake and sleep, right?
Mm.
And, like, that we've been playing with that the whole time with this piece. Like,
Yeah.
that's the vibe it had. But this is the first time we've said it to each other, and we've talked about Capricorn a whole bunch. But
Right.
doing it live, I was like, I don't wanna say meditative because that has religious in it, but
Mhm.
there's a stillness and a slowness there
Yeah.
that is not apparent until you, like, have to sit with it.
Right.
And I it was interesting to watch the people that were like and I do think I had a little bit to do with the people who were still standing. That's a
Mhm.
hard piece to stand through. I think you should sit with it. You
Right.
should either be sitting or walking through a dark, scary city. Those are the
Yeah.
only things and, like, you should find one of the QR codes that are in one of the cities I've been to. You you should scan it and plug it in and put the headphone on and start walking and occasionally glance at your phone when the
Right.
music seems to change and walk, or you should be sitting down at night. These are my
Right.
preferred ways of you seeing this piece.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not complaining. It sounds like not complaining, but I'm in no way, shape, or form complaining. Um,
Yeah. Well, but I think you're right because I mean, because it is long and like you know when you compare it to basically any other anything else.
y-
Actually, that's kind of the irony of it though is that like it's a bunch of short pieces
y-
that create a long piece.
y-
Um, and and I think that what I do like about live performances, it's I think that when you have a live performance like that, it's a very much like a classical setting, where people are sitting down, and it would be rude, it'd be considered rude to stand up and get up and leave like in the middle of it. And I think because of that, I mean, you are forced to endure it, whether you like it or not.
that's how I like
And
my art. Adore my art.
right, exactly. And but it does mean it's a totally different experience because if you're just watching it on the video on YouTube, then you have the authority for
Mhm.
yourself to press stop or ignore it or whatever, or put it in the background or whatever. But here, you're kind of and y- forced to just endure it for the duration, and then see. And I'm kind of curious because that's something that didn't really come out during the conversations that I had with people, but I'm curious, like, if there were parts that people didn't like, or maybe people felt uncomfortable during parts, and I don't know. I'm just curious, kind of like what the experiences were, because I'm sure it was a whole range of experiences. I could tell, like there were definitely some people um, who who really did enjoy it, and had some really insightful things to say. And then, no one told me directly that they didn't enjoy it, but you can sort of get a sense from body language and things like that when people uh, are just trying to be polite, and that kind of thing.
I think it's funny because and I'm being a little bit of a jerk saying this, but I could tell the people like, listen, I know this is really rude to say, but like if you've never gone much further past pop music, it's not gonna hit for you. I don't know how to tell you. Like you have to. There's a stillness in this
Mhm.
that is uninviting to people, and I think that is something I kind of knew. Like it's
Yeah,
not. When we did this, I said we're gonna get our first fan after we get 1,000 views. We're still not there. We're close,
right.
but like we're gonna the first person who's like, this is for me. But
Yeah,
um and it's not. It's also funny because it's not so out of the box that I think it's like we're not doing residents. This is,
yeah,
but like you have to you have to know you have to have a really strong opinion on Primus to be able to like vibe with it. You don't have to love Primus, but you have to kind of know what's going on with Primus. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Um,
yeah. And it does. I mean, and I sort of feel a little bit elitist, like kind of having a conversation like this.
oh yeah,
Um, but which I mean, I don't know, like I
special. We're special, and anyone who doesn't notice is idiots. Yeah, I agree.
exactly, yeah. You know, s
Their
but
fault, not ours. I don't care.
exactly, yeah, yeah.
I didn't
Well,
warn anybody. It was 30 minutes. Well, it is also 30 minutes. It was 30 images, but it's a minute of looking at a still image. And
yeah, exactly.
boy, do we not want to do that. Like, boy, does our
Exactly.
mind not want to look at a single still image. They want if and I honestly think this. If I put a flickering thing over the whole thing, we put a flickering thing, right? Just a
Mhm.
little movie thing. It would be so much easier for people to deal with if it looked like it was going through a film canister or something than
Yeah,
just a 30 still images for 1 minute at a time. Like
right.
you can just feel people go like, I need this to cut and change, and it doesn't. That's not what the piece is.
Exactly.
I think that's a note I get a lot is they go, I don't know why this doesn't move, and I'm like, that's because that's not what the piece is. The piece
Right.
isn't about it's 30 images. It's not moving. It's an image and a song that go together. It's a
Exactly, yeah,
very
yeah.
specific, you know, it's people want that movement. They want to go to our roots for a second. They want that NFT skull spin. It's easier for people to eat that NFT skull spin than it
Yeah,
is to look at something completely still. I think
Mm.
that's just inherently part of what's interesting about
It is, yeah, and it's and it's definitely and it's something that's hard for me as well. So I'm not like trying to say like
it. You too. That's why
I'm
it's
better.
interesting.
Yeah,
I don't think it's
exactly.
easy.
Yeah, right.
That's
Wow,
it. Time out.
that was it.
Yep, 15
You know,
minutes.
again, another forced exit. Which
I love it. It keeps it fresh, my guy. Keeps
I
us
know,
on our
but
toes.
at least we ended on a sentence that time. So
Yeah, yeah.